Calls to order.
Yep, I'll call us to order. This is the Town of Sylva Planning Board for September 15th, 2022. On this meeting to order. What else do we need to do? I'm trying, because my first, we don't have a quorum, so can't really.
I think we don't, I mean, we can't approve minutes, but I think we can talk about the bylaws.
Okay.
And meeting schedule.
Okay.
And next topics and how we want to handle those.
All right. Okay, so yeah, so we'll just talk about what we read, and I did have questions about can't approve the minutes, but I had just wanted to make sure I understood when I was reading these updated the bylaws for Town of Sylva planning procedure. Am I reading that all the stuff in red is new stuff? Is that how I read that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And how does that change? I can't remember the old stuff. So how does that change from what it was
So
before?
basically, back in March, when the town board added term limits to the ABC board, they wanted to add 3 full term limits to the planning board.
Okay,
And we didn't have, I think the initial bylaws when they were adopted had term limits, like maybe in the 90s, but then at some point they were removed.
okay,
So that's a change. And then as I was looking at them back in March, there were lots of other things, like it had the planning board appointing its own secretary and didn't really outline what the officers did. Somebody was responsible for postage. It was just a lot of information that was no longer applicable.
gotcha.
So it doesn't show what I've deleted, but the stuff that was taken out was just irrelevant at this point.
Right.
Seems to be concise and thorough, good description of what we do.
Is anybody who is Rose the extra ETJ person?
Yeah,
Was she appointed by the commissioners or is that a new thing?
that was actually that's in a general statute.
Okay.
But they appointed the person that was the representative before Rose. And then I don't think they appointed Rose. I think the 90 days lapsed.
And then and then the town of Sylva picked the commissioners of town of Sylva picked the person for the ETJ.
And the reason I have that one not expiring is because it's her neighborhood is the only, it needs to be a resident that represents the ETJ.
Gotcha.
And that's the only neighborhood.
Okay,
This-
right. That makes sense.
There may be another house. I'm sure there's another residence in the ETJ, but it's just a single house. That makes sense.
Pretty small pool.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We're already working for small pools.
You're
Town of Sylva.
basically looking at whatever her house, how many houses are in her neighborhood. Let's say 30 or something. Plus
Makes sense.
3 or 4 more, so.
Do you worry about term limits for this board and keeping the board full and?
I am a little concerned about that.
We're gonna be mindful of this. So, as a person who's worried about term limits, that is, but it's hard.
Right.
Like a board who's, the count on and, it's hard to find the people.
Yes,
You gotta fight the application.
right.
And have it be wrong stuff.
Yeah. We have always been able to find somebody.
And it's consecutive, so if you ever had to go back, so you could also.
Right.
Mumbling in my breath.
Yeah.
I'm just mumbling. I'm mumble. Undistinguishable mumble. Got our own breath. Got our own.
How long work boy
I honestly don't know. But he's been out for a long time.
So when is the curiosity, when is the, like, I know I just started, we all just kind of got on here. So like, we're starting it now or after we approve this, then we'll have 3 consecutive terms from next July. Is that how that's going to work or
So
just curious? We're just,
I looked at this one time and we've got dates that where 2 of this group have been appointed at the same time. So I think we can do staggered that way. And then I think we also were able to determine if it would be first or second terms for you all. So I think we would need to just look at it based off when we could tell people were appointed.
gotcha.
The meeting time is highlighted.
Yes, so this, we had it in the last time this was reviewed, the 4th Thursday of the month at 5. If you all are all right with that, I'd like to go back to that one. Since we've got town board the same week, that gives us a week without a meeting. You all have a strong preference between the 3rd and 4th Thursdays. And if that throws anybody's schedule off, I don't want to do that.
Difference from the Zoom meeting.
I think the only, yeah, I'm like, I just, okay, I put it on my thing, like I put it on the calendar, like. I like the 5:30, but I mean, I'm not opposed to 5. I mean, I'm pretty, I am super flexible now. But just kind of like that time is a little easier to kind of like, all right, drop if I have to run, grab the kids and drop them off and kind of like just around that time is when we can go out. But I mean, if everybody wants to do 5, 5's fine. It's not a huge difference, but it doesn't matter. It'd be nicer if you all at 5 o'clock instead of 5:30. So, but
We'll do whatever works.
right, but 5 o'clock's that would be fine. Yeah. And I'm thinking, I'm still in the mindset of like, I get off work at 5 o'clock. I got my new job. I get off work around 1. Like, nah, I'm the only one. Like, all right, I can, and I'm done. Like everything, I still have to do everything tomorrow. So 5 o'clock's fine. Did a whole thing.
We'll check with the rest of the board on the week and the day.
For me, the 4th Thursday is fine. 5 is a bit better than 5:30, but it's only occasionally that I have something that I want to be there at 6:30, so.
And then it says again in the section of the working with health, we can't get that on the next time, but it's also in the middle. 77.
Oh. It makes more sense instead, and we can take it out of this.
Yeah. It's April.
I like that. Meeting can be held, maybe held at any other convenient place in the town of Sylva. If directed by chairperson of the advance. Any convenient place.
That kind of changes with the streaming.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I know.
We have had more town board meetings, so we've had to move to larger places.
Is there, does it need to be language about being in Zoom meeting?
So I think that'll come out from the legislature since this state of emergency expired and we lost that ability to count as towards a quorum. So I think that'll be forthcoming.
Right, it states that you need to.
Yeah. Anything else on the bylaws?
But all members may vote on any issue unless they have disqualified themselves for any reason, so if it's like about conflict of interest or,
Yeah.
okay. So should we be disqualifying ourselves or like is that part of the ethics of it? I'm assuming, but it doesn't say in there that we should,
Right.
maybe that would be something.
Yes, so I think there's a duty to vote unless there is a conflict of interest.
Mhm.
And I mean, this may be something we should spell out in here, but the conflict of interest exists. It's stricter if it's quasi judicial.
Mhm.
But
are we not doing that?
it'll be less frequent. So yeah, that will eliminate a lot of it.
Mhm.
And I mean, this board makes recommendations, but is an advisory board, so it's not as stringent
Mhm.
of rules.
To clarify, I do think it's more narrow than means that I mean, you would consider a conflict of interest.
Right. I mean, I think we had one thing when I was working for civil design concepts at Chamber Front, and I think we had a forum, so I abstained from that vote. I don't think it wouldn't have, like, they passed everything and stuff like that, but I think that's the only thing that I can think of, like we had in the last couple of years or something, or 3 years since we've done that. It's kind of one of those things. But even then, we're not affecting whether that project moves forward or not, you know. Must be like own the property or something to that effect.
But I can spell that out if that would help.
That language, though, you start to go down the rabbit hole, you know?
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm sure there's somewhere else that's already spelled it out better than.
Right. Just copy and paste.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fine with me if it's not interesting. No, that brought up an idea that I think there's a duty to disqualify ourselves in that situation. So forth.
Something that impacted you financially. Or the only other real thing I could think of is if you were trying to make a decision on your own property, like for a financial gain.
Spot zoning my own property to people. Something, yeah.
Yeah, voting on your own
Yeah.
conditional districts. But being like the chicken owner. You're voting on those.
No, because, right, because the chicken owner doesn't affect your financial interest. And you could also say that you could have a better idea of regulations that would be appropriate based off of that.
Mhm. Makes sense.
Anything else? So the next thing is the future discussion list. And we talked about this before, and Melissa had the idea of dividing it up based off of what people were interested in. We can do that. What we're going to run into is not meeting November and December. So likely picking back up in January after this meeting. And I think if we wanted to have an idea of where you wanted to go next, or if you wanted to look at ones that you are definitely interested in, we could get our plan together.
I think that there's gonna be some of them that people just are not going to be interested in, there's only a couple on here. I mean, other people. Obviously. But penalty section on it is not something. Would have a huge interest in, I do think that. The agricultural uses, since it was a fairly controversial topic. And I believe the board would like us to move forward on that one sooner. I would think that would be a good one to start with this.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's an issue that's come up, and I think that, or I think the outdoor displays and business district are always something that comes up. And see things about it. So, yeah. Those two.
Okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, so if we split it up. And then they feel.
Well. No, I mean, I think we could split it up if there are some that are interested in one and some interested in others, however you all want to.
No, that wasn't. Back. Thinking that maybe we should just take a couple things and we all do some research and bring it to the next meeting. and check it. I mean, unprepared and say, okay, today we're going to talk about chicken. The next meeting, we'll have to go over the stuff we talked about in the first meeting. Right. Yeah. So maybe thinking, okay, maybe we should look at what are the agricultural ordinances in other towns. And have some people talk to some about chickens or goats or whatever. That kind of thing. Each of us try to make some strides towards information gathering and ideas.
Yes, and I think one thing that came out of the public hearing was looking at lot size as a threshold. Chickens.
There was lot size and there's. Closeness to the edge of the property too. And of course, the number of chickens. And this very issue.
Right. We can say these specific sections. You also, you don't have to pull them out.
What do you think would be the specific issues for outdoor displays?
I don't even know, I think it's just looking at, for me, it's the blinking signs, what do we allow in terms of eyesores, blinking, hopefully lit up.
Wasn't there something in the ordinance about like?
There is some, I think just looking at it again, see if it still works for what we got.
And the fact that I think we're going to talk about that, we have a resource that we can call Allison, who is part of our, they are part of our town of Sylva business, and they do a lot of work. And like, all right, what are we missing? What are we seeing here? How can we be, what we're trying to do with the town, but also be respectful of the fact that you're, be a business in our town that does good work and does work everywhere around West North Carolina too. Be like, I want to be cognizant of that, but also understanding what we're trying to do and the character we're trying to develop here in the downtown business area and, along Corridor 107 and all our other corridors too. Same way we call a chicken farmer and ask them what their thoughts are, that type of stuff too.
And I think it's also talking about merchandise that's
All right, the sidewalk stuff.
Yeah,
This mainly this is dealing with the downtown business district.
Yes. not just
Yes.
sign.
It can be. And if those two things we tackle, we won't have meetings in December, or November, December, because it's Thanksgiving, Christmas.
Right.
So,
Things come up, maybe not discuss.
Right. so we're talking really just a meeting in October and a meeting in January. And February, March, because that rolls back around. So we tackle in our next 6 meetings, we tackle those two things. I would say we're beyond what would come up normally. Imagine I would say that would be a win for us. You know, I don't think, tackling all of these things, if we're priority ranking things
right.
to a point where we can. Because I feel like sometimes I look at these things and we could easily jump around and not talk a little about everything, not talk about nothing. Yeah, not feel like we moved anything, any progress forward to where we could come up and say, hey, it's this meeting, we talked about this to the town council.
I'm good with that. I think those are two that we can look at issues that we have in Sylva and then examples of other places and not necessarily have to be experts to really get into it. Some of these, like the zoning map, like that's got to be hired out. Separation distances. That one's just freaky.
Because you're talking about buildable space
Mhm.
and, working within, it's not like any open land in the town of Sylva. So how do you,
Yeah, that would get very specific.
And there's probably state statute about this as well, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So what we
We have to look
did,
at those for each of these.
so I think what we did in the zoning ordinance was take out where there were state statutes already regulating it.
Mhm.
But then thinking if there was, it was added to this list in case there was something stricter that needed to go.
Both sides, steep slope, probably favorable as well.
Right.
Do we have any plans to hire out any? Oh, on the zoning map?
So we quoted that for this current year and pretty much thought the cost was like 40,000. And thought, we just went through a huge process with a consultant and then we've got lots of large projects coming up. That's one we didn't feel like we had the capacity to tackle this year.
Would we have any role in that before a consultant would look at it? Or would we just be like reviewing the consultant's work?
So there, I think we could look at if there are specific things we wanted to change in the districts and the issues that we are seeing with the zoning districts since we've adopted this new ordinance. And then we could probably have the planning department pull some data as far as the size of the lots, separation from, well, not separation, setback. If those lots are big enough to have accessory dwellings. That, I think there's that kind of work that could be done for a consultant to really get at what we wanted them to do. But I think a lot of that will happen naturally as we're seeing how the ordinance works.
Better to wait on that.
Maybe there's not much come up yet in terms of new ones. Rather than having the chicken issue right off the bat, and things like that, but
The short-term ones.
nothing else. We bumped into that. So it's another time.
Yes. That's all I have.
Anything else to me? We do anything in closing meetings because there's not a quorum, or just say thanks for wave to everybody on the camera. Camera.
You can still adjourn.
Yeah, you can.
I'm gonna have to make a motion to adjourn, do I just adjourn? I make a motion. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting. So be.
Thank you all.